So as I previously had mentioned, some sites display on every single site. This is actually just a screenshot of my site. And on every single page, I have two feeds. I have a security focus feed and I have the web security mailing list feed. So no matter where I am, it's always there. Luckily, I filter it. If I didn't, I'd have a problem. And I'm just going to kind of walk through the demo of that now. So this is just a copy of my site here. So let's just say I'm a Joe user. I go to the site. Very interesting. There's all kinds of stuff here. That's great. So let's say I have an account, and I'll just log in. That's great. Now I'm logged in, and now I know my favorite link now. But what really happened was that while I was typing all of that, everything I just typed was actually copied off to a third-party host as I was typing it. And if you can see right here, everything I just typed in. So I typed in foo as my username, and I typed in bar. I did actually fat finger and typed 2 R's. But you can see as I'm entering in each key, it's being sent off to that remote host without my knowledge. As far as I'm a basic user, you can actually see if you look very quickly. If you look very quickly on the bottom left-hand corner, you can kind of see it flashing, and you can see that it's actually sending it off. However, that's not something that a user is going to pay attention to. They're just going to type, do their thing. They don't look at things like that. So here's kind of, I guess, what I was talking about. Here are the different types of ways that feed can be re-syndicated on different sites and kind of propagate an attack. Either A, server A has the malicious feed. People subscribe to the malicious feed on server A are attacked. Or server B downloads it, and then they provide content on their site and display it. Now you're affecting that user base. Or perhaps they're putting it into their own feed, and now everybody subscribed to that is now affected. And now perhaps server C is downloading server B's feed and kind of repeating that process over and over again. So you can kind of see the potential here for kind of widespread issues. So this is kind of a little bit of a debate because the web-based feed standards, they allow HTML formatting. If I want to put bold a certain character, if I want to bold like a certain thing of text or put like an href in there, they support it. There's nothing wrong with it. So you're kind of have to make a decision. Do you want to present this information and potentially have a few risks associated with it, or do you want to strip it out and make it not as usable? Obviously, one of the basic suggestions would be to disable script applets or plugins like Flash, things like that. But if you still allow HTML, there's still a potential to do the cross-site request forwarding attacks. Sure, it's not like the coolest attack ever that you can do necessarily, but there are definitely risks if you're logged into like a stock trading site or something like that. You figure, let's say for example that I know I can influence a feed that has 50,000 users subscribed, right? If I inject an attack in there, I figure, okay, it's a big bank. Maybe at least 2 or 3 of those users are going to be logged into there while they're reading it. So I might be able to like transfer funds to another account of mine, or perhaps if it's like an online store, I might be able to have them buy something, perhaps. So obviously the best way to deal with this, you can either A, disable the script stuff and allow HTML and still have issues with cross-site request forwarding, or B, you can allow it. And as an example, Yahoo has the ability to do JavaScript-based advertising. But then if you're allowing your reader to execute that, now you're opening yourself up to those other risks. Definitely one of the better things that you can do is actually something that a lot of online forums have done. They kind of allow certain HTML tags, as an example, like links. Or a lot of them will create like pseudo links where you'll have like a bracket, URL bracket, and you'll put it in there, like PHPBB and some other ones do things like that. So that's another option that you can do. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay. So there's actually a lot of things that can be done. This is kind of an introduction to some of the threats that can be associated with web-based feeds and the different use case scenarios with them. But there are definitely some other interesting things that can be done. Like a lot of podcasting clients or peer-to-peer clients will automatically download the files. Adam has the ability to specify a file to be downloaded, and it actually has a few attributes that you can specify content types. That's kind of something, the MIME type rather, that's something I'm kind of interested in looking into. Some embedded devices will actually use them to update themselves. So let's say, for example, actually TiVo has, they have a reader that you can install on there. So imagine if TiVo, not that they are vulnerable, I haven't tested them, and I'm not going to say that they are or they aren't, but let's say that TiVo is affected. Let's say that TiVo did like an update to TiVo Home in order to do updates for itself. What if I could somehow influence that feed, or maybe I poison the cache in between, and what if it downloaded that and was vulnerable? Well, a lot of people have TiVo. So you can kind of see the potential here that this isn't just a web browser or a local reader. This can potentially affect embedded devices as well, depending on how they're utilizing them. Ad spamming. Like I said, Yahoo has the ability to do ads. Definitely there might be a potential that people are going to start abusing this, where they may find websites that will display like a post or something like that that also has a feed, and on the websites they are filtering it, but not in the feed. So like a lot of people are familiar with, I'm sure a lot of the people here have web-based forums and get all these bots hitting them with like inserting all these crappy links in order to boost up their sites. That's definitely going to happen. Yeah, it's going to happen more than likely on blogs and things like that. These are kind of automated tools that just scrape the web, find any form, and start submitting things to it. And definitely that data has the potential to be put into a feed, and then now that feed could be on another site, and now suddenly the site that they're spamming to SEO boost is now displayed on another site, so now they have that other site's page rank helping them boost their site up. I didn't review every single element. There's a lot of them. I didn't have enough time. It's kind of out of scope for this talk. But definitely there's a lot of interesting things in there, and if anybody's actually done any research with that, I'd be interested to talk to you guys about it. Here's just some additional references. I just released a paper on Tuesday kind of outlining some of the things in this talk. It's about 20 pages or so. Kind of walks you through the types of things that can happen, introduction type paper to the type of issue. I'm not gonna preach to the choir here. You gotta, whenever you get data, you can't assume that data is good if you're going to use it. You have to consider, okay, I'm getting data from here. What am I doing with that data? Where's that data going? How could the impact of where that data is going potentially create a risk? It's possible that you have application A storing it, application B is taking it out of that storage and using it. You need to, no matter where the data is coming from, you need to take into consideration the risks that could happen with that. And as this year, this is basically the cross-site scripting room this year at BlackHat, and it's starting to become more useful. About 3 or 4 years ago, pretty much anybody who looked at it and wrote anything on it were considered lame. We're less lame now, I guess, but there's some more interesting things that you can do, and there's a lot of talks today that are going to be pretty interesting. Again, Jeremiah Grossman, Billy Hoffman, there's some other talks today. They're going to kind of get into the port scanning aspect and some of the other kind of extended uses for it that you can do. So does anybody have any questions, or? Well, I mean, a lot of online forums do have that issue. That was kind of out of the scope. I did notice that some of them would relay the literal script into their feed as an example. Technically, there's nothing wrong with that because the spec allows tags to be in there. And a lot of the times, like if they've done a post with HTML entities or something like that, and they're storing that in the feed, technically there's nothing wrong with that. However, it's the person using it. So kind of that website is kind of relaying something off to another type of client in order to attack it. So to answer that question, no, I didn't test specifically what online bulletin boards were vulnerable to cross-site scripting, but I did poke around in a few to see which ones put it into the feed. I don't have the results that I can put here. I'll probably post something to like a mailing list or something for people who are interested, or anybody interested in finding out. I can email you it. I'm sorry? Yep. I played around with that a little bit. It pretty much was ignored. The main focus of it was kind of the common elements, like the link, the title, the description, the author, this feed title, the feed link, a couple things like that. I did do some initial smoke testing with that, and this is something I'm going to kind of expand on. But I didn't find any things off the bat on the initial smoke test that I had done with that. Anybody have any additional questions or? Well, when I first created it, I thought to myself, you know, this is lame. This is putting cross-site scripting in feeds. There's just got to be a lot of stuff on this already. So then I like just made a couple of feeds, and like almost everybody I tested was vulnerable. And I went, well, if everybody's vulnerable, I guess nobody's talked about it. So I started Googling around, and I couldn't find anything really. I found like the one Yahoo thing. I actually started this in like September of last year, and I just kind of forgot about it for like 6 months or so. But initially, I thought it was pretty lame. And I just kind of was, I thought, oh, this has to be known. And some of the things that kind of surprised me were specifically were some of the readers that would load it within the local zone. It's like, there's no need to do that. You know, a lot of readers are kind of, are displaying it within that site context zone, but these ones are choosing to do it locally, so now they're opening up all this functionality. Yes, the user has to click on the ActiveX in this particular application. It hasn't stopped people before. We wouldn't have email viruses that are using attachments if that was the case. So definitely one of the more interesting things is when you're displaying the feed on a website or putting that feed's content into another feed. There's definitely a lot of potential for some interesting things there. As an example, I mean, you guys are familiar with there are web-based worms now that are starting to use Google in order to find hosts. What if I posted a worm or something like that into a blog? Anybody subscribed to that blog executes JavaScript, and in that particular application, just to make it easy for the sake of the discussion, it's within the local zone. Well, now you have that JavaScript start searching for other hosts running that software and start posting copies of itself. And now whenever somebody reads that feed, now it does the same thing. So there's definitely a potential here for worms and things like that. I haven't seen any. I know people are going to ask me how many real-life examples of this have I seen. A lot of the smarter people are not going to be noticed. There have been 2 instances with Google and Yahoo where there have been some issues discovered, and I'd be naive to think that 10 other people hadn't thought of this before me and just hadn't said anything, because that's what it happens all the time in the security industry. People write something, oh, it's so cool. Oh, yeah, I was doing that 3 years ago. You know, it just happens all the time. Nice. Yeah, definitely. I think the potential for revenue as far as people subscribing to online advertisers, like as an example, Yahoo. It's the only one that I know of that has ads in RSS or Atom feeds in particular. But definitely, there's a potential for people to start abusing that and just posting it all over the place, kind of like those spam bots do on web forums, in order to try to generate revenue or do SEO boosting or things like that. Anybody have any additional questions or? I'm sorry, it's hard to hear you. Yes. Yes. I kind of did the common type of filtering, like associated with like cross-site scripting as an example. What I did was I basically stripped things like double quotes, left bracket, right bracket, parentheses. I even stripped pound and ampersand and semicolon out of there before I presented that information to the user. Common cross-site scripting filtering applied to this.